have good news and I have bad news. Okay? Which one you want first? Do you want the bad news first? The bad news is winter is coming. The good news is I'm going to show you how you can prepare for winter. And I'm going to show you, even though winter is existing, it never comes inside your home. Let's get into it. We understand that we must look at our lives. Watch this. Look at our lives. And we must say to ourselves, what is my winter for this category? What is winter in my marriage? Which is, what is the coldest, darkest it ever been? That's the winter that we have to be prepared for. What is the winter in my children? Per child. What is winter for my oldest son versus what is winter for my daughter? What do you mean by winter? What are the characteristics that I can see that could be a problem? They have been a problem in the past. Maybe we've overcome that. We don't want them to be a problem again. Okay. What is winter in my health? What is winter in my finances? How are we going to do this? By just going back and studying from the coldest winter you've ever had. In the natural, winter comes annually. We expect it. We can tell when it's coming. How is that? How is that, you say? The leaves begin to change. The weather is cooler, right? We start to transition into the fall season, and we know that winter is on the way. If you go into the store, the clothing that they're selling is changing. They no longer are having shorts and sleeveless shirts on the aisle and on the rack. They're now having long pants and leggings and jackets and long sleeve shirts because winter is coming. It's the understanding that winter is inevitable. Winter is going to come. It's so funny, as I'm saying, it's thundering outside. It's the onset of spring, but it's just cool, as if it just knows I'm about to teach this lesson. Okay, heaven, you have my back and I appreciate it. Because winter is one of those things that we prepare for in the natural, but we do not prepare for it in the spiritual. A lot of times when winter comes in the spiritual, we're blindsided by it. I didn't see that coming. It's an ice storm and you got on shorts. I mean, it's just like, you did not see that coming. Weatherman didn't tell you. You just didn't have a clue. I want to tell you today, so you're not blindsided. Winter is coming. So I'm not saying that to freak you out, okay? I'm saying that so you can be prepared. Let's go deeper. Your first winter should be your hardest. Why is that? Because, if you were born in the spring, you didn't even know that a winter could be a thing. If you were born in the summertime, you might have had fall come on and you think, oh, this is probably the coldest it's going to get. Fall is probably the coldest it's going to get. Honey and baby, winter come and show you, oh no, baby, it can get cold. So depending on when you were born and you haven't gone through the circular of the 4 seasons, the circular method of the 4th season, then you may not have experienced the winter. But your first winter should be your hardest. Everything after that, you should be prepared. So I understand that the problem with being born into different seasons is that it can confuse you and betray you when the seasons begin to change and it begins to get colder and colder and colder. And what is this white stuff falling from the sky? And why is the rain freezing? Right? Because you've never experienced it. But even in your ignorance, I want you to understand winter is coming. So if winter is inevitable, then how should we prepare? You say, Tiff, I'm used to being encouraged. Okay. I like to come on and be encouraged and learn how to withstand the wiles of the devil. I understand that. I understand that this is not the best news that you've heard today. Okay. But what I am going to show you today is how you can withstand it so that you don't have to feel it in your living space, in your dwelling space. By the time I finish with you, you'll be excited to be prepared for winter. So let's go deeper. We're going to use the natural a lot for our illustrations because, let me tell you why. When I was studying this, it syncs so perfectly to our spiritual life. I didn't have to modify anything. Like the analogies sync perfectly to our spiritual life. So we're going to have a lot of fun using analogies and using illustrations in the natural to prepare for what we may have as a spiritual winter. All right. Now watch this. This is so powerful, y'all. Okay. I live in Texas. And I had 2 homes. Both of my homes I had built from the ground up. And so I was able to see how the home was built. I was able to stop by. We actually wrote scriptures, on the wood panels of our walls and all of that. And you see when they put the installation up. And so how they build the homes in Texas are completely different than how they build homes in Alaska. Completely different on how they build homes in Minnesota, in New York, in upstate New York. It's just completely different. Why is that? What's the biggest difference? The biggest difference is the insulation that they put in the homes. And I'm going to give you a little lesson on installation because it's so powerful on the revelation that we're going to be journeying on today. Do you know, okay, and you might, okay, I didn't till I was learning this, that insulation is rated based off of an R value. The R value stands for resistance. Okay, this is getting good, right? The installation, the definition of an installation is a way to trap an in between the living space. This is where you live, this is where you sleep, this is where you eat, this is where you raise your kids. The living space and the outdoors to regulate temperature in that living space. So the insulation is what keeps the outside weather from getting on the inside living space where you're vulnerable, where you sometimes may or may not be clothed, may not have your shoes on, may not be. So you need an installation that's going to protect your living space from the outside weather. Watch this. Insulation is measured by our value, our resistance value. It tells you how hard it is for heat or cold to flow through 1 inch of material. Okay, that's how they measure the R value. The higher the number, the higher the resistance. And you say, well, how do you know how high of the number? If I'm in Texas, if I'm in New York, if I'm in Alaska, you guess how you know how high the number? By the last winter you had, by the hardest winter you had, because of the patterns of winters in your life. Now you know. So look at this graph. Look at this graph. This is what I want you to see, right? This is the R value that they recommend based off of where you live. So you see Texas, right? Southern Texas, you're talking about southern, eastern Texas, right? They have 2A. All right, so that resistance level isn't as high as once you start to head just a little bit up north in Texas. You start to see that they need a thicker installation. Look, let's journey up. Let's journey up to, let's say, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Maine, okay, New York. You start to journey up and you start to see that the resistance level is higher. They need a thicker installation in those states because of the pattern of winters that they had. Okay, watch this. This is what's beautiful about our illustration. Do you know that when homes are built, there's the R value when you have to put in the initial installation, and then there's a different R value when you're just adding installation to what was already put there? Because when you come back for the additional installation, it does not have to be as intense than when you're adding installation. It can be a lower R value because why? You've done the hard work and you've put in the highest R value when you first built the home. If your revelations is not running rampant in your head, okay, I don't know what's wrong with you. Okay, you should be having them faster than I can break them down based off of this insulation of a home. What is the insulation of the home? It keeps the heat and cold on the outside, so it doesn't impact the living space on the inside. But when you first built the home, you need to have the highest installation. And then for maintenance, okay, it doesn't have to be as intense. This was so good to me. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, let's keep going because I'm about to break this down. Are you not, or is that just me? I am fascinated by bears and the way they hibernate in the winter. Completely fascinated by this whole aspect that they do. All right, so this is how it works. As summer ends, okay, they begin to feel the breeze. Those leaves start to turning, and they know that it's time for us to increase the hunt for food so that they can prepare for winter. So they increase the hunt for food. They're bringing this back to their bear den. So they're going to have a place that they go that they know they're going to hibernate in. That's their bear den. Guess what? Once they build the bear den for the first time, they don't typically move bear dens around unless they feel like that bear den is at risk for hunting. So what does that mean? They do the hardest work first, and then for the subsequent years, they just follow this process. They increase their hunt for food. Okay, during the fall months, the bears eat and drink nearly non-stop. Nearly non-stop. You're like, what in the world is wrong? It is ravishing. The fish and the water and the fish and just eating up everything. Okay, they need the weight to prepare for winter and hibernation. I don't know if I'm saying this right. The process is called hyperphagia. Okay, hopefully I'm saying that right. Not embarrassing myself too bad. All right. Most bears hibernate or den during winter. You say, how long? Watch this. The time span is based off of location. What does that mean? The time span in which they hibernate is based off of how cold and how ruthless wherever they live that winter is going to be. It could be weeks, it could be months, depends on location. This is what I want you to understand. Your job is to answer this question. What is my winter? What is the winter in your familial bloodline? Is there a pattern that you see in your bloodline? It hasn't hit you yet, but you see it. You see that all the women have died from breast cancer. You see that all the men die young. You see that most of the mothers don't stick around to raise their kids. They're raised by other women in the family. You see the pattern. You see the winters in your familial bloodline. I'm telling you, because you're hearing me say this, it's on you to put a stop to it so it doesn't come to your house. Okay? If you prepare for winter the right way, you can thrive in winter. Doesn't mean that it's not trying to go around. It's not happening on the outside. But in your living spaces, you're so insulated. Now, when you build, let's say, because we want to think about each category of our life. Let's say in your marriage, right? You've had your coldest winter, all right? And you fasted, you prayed, you went to intense counseling to get yourselves back on track. That's the highest R value that you did to get yourself stabilized, right? But now you still have to have a maintenance plan to be preventative from that winter trying to come back. And you say, well, nope, Tiff, I can't even think about it. This was just the hardest time in our lives. Just the thought of it makes me I just want to give up. I mean, I was suicidal. I get emotional. I felt like I was losing my mind. I just don't even want to imagine the darkest times in my life when it came to me being a mom, or the darkest times in my life when it came to my health or with in my marriage. And I just don't want to. Okay, I understand that. But here's what I want to share with you. Matthew 12. Okay, I've shared this with y'all a lot because this is important. Matthew 12, 43, 45. Okay. When an unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest and finds none, restless. Where can the evil spirit rest his bones? Then he says, you know what, forget all this. I will return to my house from which I came. I'm just going to return home where it's comfortable. And when he comes, God dog it. That when gets me every time. That WHEN and that scripture changed my life. Because I no longer was blindsided by anything. If I know that you reared your ugly head in this category of my life before, I know you want to come back again. I'm not confused on that. I know that's where you seek to devour me. I know that's where you seek to trip me up. Winter is coming. And guess what? He finds, when this evil spirit comes back, and when he comes back, when the evil spirit comes back, if he finds it empty, swept, and put in order, then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. And they enter and dwell there. Dwelling is like, I ain't going nowhere. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. What does this tell me? It's inevitable that they come back around. What does this tell me? Winter is coming. It tells me winter is coming. But guess what? I want to be like the bears. Listen, I just love them. They're on the hunt for food and they eat and drink during all the fall months. They eat and drink nonstop. Why? Because by the time winter comes, baby, you may not have the energy. You must eat and drink nonstop prior to winter. You must read his word and have your foundational scriptures prior to winter. Okay. Here's what I love. Here's the good news. Do you know that over time, the bears have evolved so much during the winter season that they thrive in winter? They thrive so much that they typically have their cubs in winter, in hibernation. They literally get pregnant in timing where they'll have their bears in hibernation. Why? Because they prepared so much for winter. It is now the safest, calmest place because they prepared all fall. They prepared while the other animals were playing and lollygagging. They were eating nonstop. While the other animals were getting into tussles and fighting and just having their little 1 meal a day, they were eating nonstop. They were freshening up the bear den. They were making sure they were prepared. And they prepared so much that when winter came, they thrived in winter. That they brought new life in hibernation in winter. Here's what I want to tell you. Anybody that knows my story, 30-second version, I had to file bankruptcy because my family was in financial disarray. Thought it was the end of me. I was working a 9-to-5 at the time. It ended up being the birthing ground of miracles in my life. I became an entrepreneur. I began to take on a pursuit of knowledge. And what God did in my life is our family are now multiple 7-figure earners. And we have been for many years. And I've still been a full-time entrepreneur for over a decade. I say that to say that bankruptcy was our financial winter. That was the coldest, darkest it had ever been. That was our snowstorm. That was our ice storm. That was our Alaska. That was our Antarctica. That was the coldest it ever been. Do you think for a second that as I begin to grow and begin to come out of that situation and begin to grow in wealth, that winter didn't try to circle back and try to use the same habits and the same traps and the same desires that got us into this mess to try to use that again so that we could repeat the same things and get ourselves into the same situation, even though we had more money? You don't think it was when he came back? But let me tell you something. When we noticed the signs, we shut it down, baby. It whip out this Bible, okay? Fast. Let's go deeper into our knowledge of managing finances on a different level. And let's get some mentorship. Let's get some strategies. I hired a coach. I went on a fast. Me and my husband prayed. We said we will not repeat the same patterns. And guess what? We were eating and eating in the fall. We were eating and eating in the fall. We ate so much that now we thrive in the area where we had one of our coldest winters. Okay, I'm hoping y'all getting all of this the way this was deposited to me, because baby, okay, I'm gonna give you some biblical examples of preparing for winter. That winter is coming, and then I'm gonna set you up for success. Okay, of how you can prevent this for yourself. Okay, and we're gonna set you up for success because winter is inevitable when he comes. Not if, when he comes. All right, biblical examples. Joseph in the 7 years of plenty. I feel like I've been using Joseph's life a lot in this series, but it's just so fitting, right? Genesis 41, because he was in right standing with God. He had the wisdom to interpret a dream that no one else could interpret. The beauty about Joseph interpreting the dream that he did for the king is that the king tried to get other people to interpret it. Nobody could do it. So he comes to Joseph. Joseph can interpret the dreams. Joseph tells him, gotcha. It's what it is. It's the 7 cows, okay? The 7 cows that represents 7 years. And he says, there's going to be 7 years of plenty, 7 years of overflow. Well, you must take off the excess of the overflow and must delegate it for the 7 years of famine that's going to come right after your 7 years of plenty. What the dream told Joseph is winter is coming. But if we could be like the bears that are just, they said it's just disgusting. Just eating. If we prepare for the winter, guess what happened when the winter actually came? They thrived. Their nation thrived. Other nations came to them to get food and nourishment. Joseph's brothers who threw him away and told their daddy he was dead came to him for food and nourishment. Because when you prepare properly for winter, not only will winter not touch you because you have the insulation set up so good in your home that your living space is safe, not only will it not touch you, you'll thrive in winter. How about the classic Noah building the ark? God told him, ain't nothing, this happening. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Not a prayer you can pray. This is happening. And Noah built that ark amongst, I can guarantee you, people called this man crazy. Noah built that ark, and 2 by 2 they got on that ark. And when winter came, everybody else died and they thrived. What you have to understand when Psalms 91 says 1,000 can fall and then 10,000 but it will not come nigh me. That comes with you being in the secret place, so you know how to prepare, so you can get the supernatural advantage. If Joseph didn't have the supernatural advantage of the dream, he would have never been able to tell the king how to interpret that dream and then how they could prepare for it. You need a supernatural advantage. You need God's math. You need the part of it that disrupts and breaks the rules and is mind-boggling and supernatural so that you can prepare for the winter. Noah got his strategy from God. He was prepared for the winter. Here's one y'all not gonna like because y'all like to eat and stuff. Jesus knew what his life was going to entail. He knew his assignment. He knew that in his assignment there was going to be some winter. He knew he had to get beaten and would have to die. Guess what he did? He spent 40 days in the wilderness to fast, pray, and be tested. Why? Because he knew winter was coming. And he wanted to prepare. He wanted to be like the bear. He wanted to eat and 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 eat. You know why? Because by the time winter comes, baby, it's too late. It's too late to try to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. You are weary if you wait till winter to get full. So he knew, okay, while I'm young and vibrant, let me get into this wilderness. And he went through his 40 days and he came out of that wilderness doing miracles everywhere he went. And he was prepared to fulfill his assignment that changed the trajectory of my life and yours if you're watching this. Proverbs 27:12, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Guess what that says? Winter is coming. Will you be prudent or will you be passive? I want you to understand that winter is coming. How do you prepare? You have to first understand what your winter is. Just like when I showed you that graph of the United States, and I'm sure it goes on through the whole world, and it shows you based off of location, the winter that has come in these areas and how these homes are built to prepare for it. You have to understand what your winter is. This is where you have to take a notebook and maybe a journal, and you have to go sit somewhere. I'm always giving this advice because I think it's powerful. You got to get out of like your office or where maybe you work at. You got to go find something with a beautiful view. For those of you that live by the ocean, first of all, you left me in Texas. Okay. We don't have a body of water near the ocean. Okay. Not where I live in Dallas. So those of you that live by the ocean, or I always tell people, you find you a cool little coffee shop that's just a vibe. Okay, go get you something with a vibe. I want you to take a notebook and a journal. I'm a big iPad, okay, with the Apple Pen kind of girl, and I want you to go journal. What are my coldest winters in any area of my life for every category? What are my coldest winters I've had in my spiritual life, where I was just so disconnected from God? What was that like? What did I do to come back from that? That's probably when you put in your highest value of installation. And maybe it's not that intense, but what do I need to do to have a maintenance in that category? When he comes back, I'm not empty. And I may not even know that he's circling me like a shark. I may not even know. I got the temperature right in my home so much. I got all the things that I need so much. I might feel just a little chill where I know to turn the heat on and that's it. Right? I want you to be so prepared for winter. So your spiritual life, what is the coldest winter? I want you to think about in your marriage, what was the coldest winter? And I know y'all fought back from that. And I know y'all went to intense counseling. And I know y'all did all the things. But what's your maintenance plan? What's your maintenance plan for when he comes back? What's your maintenance plan for that? What about your babies? And remember, you got to do this per child, because every child is different. What's winter for them is different. You have one child that struggles in their health, while the other child never struggles in their health, but they struggle in their mental health. One that has physical ailment problems, one that has mental health. They get depressed and they seem to unplug. You know, that's that winter for your child. And you know, you did something to pull them out of that. Maybe you got them into counseling and you took them to the pastor, and maybe you prayed and you fasted. What's the maintenance? What's the maintenance for that? Maybe it's just a bi-weekly counseling session for them. Maybe it's a weekly when you pray for them. You just thank God in thanksgiving that their mind is in perfect order. You just thank God in thanksgiving that they are protected and covered by God, that there's a hedge of protection that will protect their mind. You make sure that their mind can't be filled up with junk, because you're making sure you're keeping them near the cross. You're having Bible studies with them. You're making sure that you go to church. There's some days you really don't feel like going to church, but you go for them because you know that's part of their maintenance, because winter is coming. When he comes back, they're not found empty, because you stewarded the bare fall season well. They were eating and eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. Every category, I want you to find out. I want you to understand what that winter is. I want you to journal it. I want you to write how you felt. I want you to write what it did to you, and I want you to write how you fought back. And then I want you to write, what is a variation of this plan I can do as maintenance, where I never even know it's winter, where the installation in my home keeps the weather on the outside and never gets to the living space on the inside. Now, I want to give you 5 things that you can do to help with your installation. Okay, I want to give you the 5 things that you can do that help with your installation. Most of the time, you had to do these 5 things if you came out of that winter before, but you're probably not doing them now. I want to remind you of those 5 things if you didn't do it. And then I want you to create your maintenance plan to keep yourself insulated because winter is coming. Here's the very first thing, most important, of course, and always, is scripture. What scripture are you standing on? We talked about this in previous episodes. There has to be a scripture that you stand on. All the other scriptures are going to help. Reading that Bible is going to help, but they're on that situation. It's like a automatic shotgun. You can pull out the holster at any time and you can speak to your mind and speak that scripture over that situation. What scripture are you standing on, right? And getting into your word about whatever that is, what category that is, and understanding what the word says about that category and really giving yourself that biblical foundation on that. Okay. The second thing is prayer. I'm a big proponent of writing out prayers. Right. So if I'm coming out of something, if I'm in the highest of warfare of a thing, maybe this is the first winter I've had. Because remember, when you're born in the spring, you didn't realize it could get this bad. So maybe this is the first winter I've had on this situation. And so I have maybe an intense prayer I'm praying. OK, but I'm always have like a maintenance prayer, which is a prayer in thanksgiving that thing will never come around again. A prayer in thanksgiving that I'm delivered from that thing or that I've been saved from that thing and that thing can never come back. So you want to make sure that you have a prayer pattern on whatever that category is. Now, watch this. The renewing of your mind. What knowledge am I pursuing to fill up my spirit, man, to fill up my knowledge, to fill up my education on that so that I can never repeat the same thing. So what do I mean by that? Let's say your winter that you first start on is about your marriage. What knowledge are you pursuing to be a better husband, to be a better wife? Like truly pursuing it. Reading books and watching videos and taking notes and applying it. Why? It's going to make sure you're not empty for when he comes back. You actively doing things. You're actively putting things in rotation. You're actively understanding what your spouse really needs and able to fulfill your spouse's needs. You're active in that. Okay. So the new mindset, which is the education on the category of what this is part of the eat. We got eating and eating and eating. We're eating the scripture. We're praying the prayers. We're getting the education. We're increasing the skill. Okay. Here goes the ones y'all not gonna like a little bit. Accountability. I have seen some extreme, it's always just remarkable testimonies of people that have some extreme accountabilities in areas that they know they're weak in. If it's health, if it's sexual perversions and different things like they know they ain't got no business doing something. I have seen some extreme accountability because if this was your winter, you probably use some extreme accountability to come out of that. All right, what's our maintenance accountability? What does that look like? Here's the last one. Coaching and mentorship. You may have the accountability and the coach and mentor might be the same person, but for some it's not. Okay. So do you have a coach or mentor? Guess what? You can have a coach or mentor that is coaching you from the screen. You can have somebody that you watch all the time. You may not even know personally that is giving you coaching and mentorship because their ministry is hyper focused on that category. I've seen some very hyper focused ministries, and I think it's a very powerful thing that can truly help people that are struggling in a particular area. What I want you to understand is accountability. You need to know that person personally. So that's why for some, it might be two different, right? Might be two different people where you're really diving into the coaching and the mentorship on that thing. That might be somebody that you're following along. But this is the reason why, and I said this in previous episodes, this is the reason why your foundation has to be scripture, because that's the only way you're going to know if a coach or mentor is offering you false doctrine. Okay. We don't want to just take your word for it. So those are the 5 things that you're going to do to insulate yourself. Scripture, prayer, your new mindset, accountability, coaching, and mentorship. This is how you insulate yourself and figure out, what does this look like for a maintenance plan? You say, Tiff, my health, my marriage, I got to have a coach and a mentor. You should have a coach and a mentor for all of that. Is it one of your assignments to fulfill that assignment? Then you should know what you're doing so you can do it well. And if it's an assignment that you've had, then that means you're living it every day. Guess what that means? You've already had a winter in that category, and winter is coming back and you need to be prepared. Okay. And that is the best way you can prepare yourself. 5 things that you need to have in each category: scripture, prayer, mindset, accountability, coaching, and mentorship. mentorship. So that when winter hits your door, you never feel it. What's going on the outside never touches the inside. I'll see you in the next video.